This video is being filmed during the SAG and WGA writer's strike. Pay them what they are owed. Don't act like you forgot. Studios, give them their money. DC failing at the box office or critically is something we got used to as DC fans around the Suicide Squad.
Hey guys, I'm back.
Suicide Squad, not so much the. Yet there were 3 films that broke the mold within what was dubbed the then DCEU. Wonder Woman, Shazam, and of course, Aquaman. As always, justice for Birds of Prey, it got screwed over by the pandemic, bad marketing, and a naming problem.
Call me dumb. I have a PhD, motherfucker.
But either way, those 3 were the most successful DC films that had come out in theaters, with Aquaman making over $1 billion, the first non-Batman related film to do such big numbers in the DC world. Yet sequels for all of these films have struggled to, and in the case of Aquaman 2, have gotten pushed back until it is now basically a meaningless film. Who is going to want to see Aquaman 2 when the DCEU is going to be going in a new direction with entirely new casting? It's already screwed over Blue Beetle because The Flash was so horrible. And to be clear, I do not joyfully dance on the grave of the DCEU. I have been there since the beginning. Complaining? Yes, but I bought a ticket. I saw every single DCEU film save for The Flash, Shazam, and I said Flash and Shazam in theaters if they were available to be seen in theaters. Shazam I just missed, and The Flash I didn't see for obvious reasons. Although we did watch it on the Patreon using Luffy methods. So let's talk about the DCEU films that did well and their sequels that didn't. And yell about how ridiculous it is that DC has spent so much money on some of the greatest IP of all time and yet doesn't know what to do with it. But first, a word from our sponsor. This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Throughout my long career desire to become a published author, which is becoming closer and closer every second, if I may say so myself, I have collected almost every single kind of how to write book possible. And none of them have really made up for the experience of getting to actually sit with someone and talk with someone through these exercises, which is why I love that Skillshare has a whole bunch of titles all around creative writing of nonfiction and fiction. I'm especially a fan of Daniel Jose Older's Storytelling 101, Character, Conflict, Context, and Craft. Not only am I a huge fan of him through his work with Star Wars, and I have read a lot of his independent work, I just think that it's great to be reminded that, yes, the story structure is important, and sometimes you can be missing a third act. Another, since I am currently working on a collection of nonfiction essays, the Bonnie Bennett Diaries, Black Girl Magic, and White Fandom, plug to any publishers out there. I have revisited creative nonfiction Write Truth with Style by Susan Orlean. Another good one is Ashley C. Ford, another writer that I absolutely adore, in their original creative personal writing, Writing the Real You. To be able to put yourself on the page in an interesting way, to be both vulnerable and intelligent is something that is very, very intimidating. But going through these videos, even for just the moment of positive reinforcement, has been great for me. And I think that if you are trying to unlock your creativity and learn something new, Skillshare is a great place to do that. And that's not just with writing, it's with photography, graphic design, cooking, business, crafting. Like I said before, I'm using it to learn about cosplaying foam. The sky is the limit. And with me, because they are helping me out, Skillshare will be giving the first 1,000 people to use the link will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. I think, and most importantly, it's a good way to focus your passions. It is cheaper than a creative writing course, and you have even more lessons to choose from. So again, the first 1,000 people to use the link down below will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Go off, have fun, and unleash the creative side hustle hobby in you. Despite my own personal feelings on the 2017 Wonder Woman film, It was indeed unequivocally a triumph. The first mainstream successful female-led superhero movie starring one of the most important female comic book characters in canon. It does not matter if you don't like Wonder Woman. Respect on her name forever. If anything, at least we'll always have the iconic casting of Linda Carter, and of course her unbeatable extraness in Justice League and Justice League Unlimited.
Yes, that's really Wonder Woman, ladies and gentlemen. It is on!
Anybody got a plan?
Yeah, try to stay alive.
Anybody got a good plan?
Directed by Patty Jenkins with a screenplay by Alan Heinberg and based on a story by Zack Snyder, Heinberg, and Jason Fauch, the film succeeded in bringing Diana to life. While very much a typical origin story, the fact of the matter was that it had the appeal of being a Wonder Woman story, the emotional epicenter was strong, and the chemistry of its two stars managed to make even its most cliche aspects work. Not to mention, the action and set pieces were excellent, the good use of slow-mo highlighting Diana's power as Wonder Woman, and of course, no matter, for all of my critiques, when that beat drops, we all stay and pay attention. And I think a lot of credit for this should definitely go to Heinberg. Heinberg is the co-creator and writer of Young Avengers and Avengers, The Children's Crusade, and he is, in my opinion, part of the magic of the script. Yes, the third act structure is doing what it does, but he has a great background in television writing and is a really solid storyteller, especially with female-led projects, having worked on Gilmore Girls, Sex and the City, and most recently, The Sandman, which is for the girls. Queer icon, he himself is a gay comic book writer, so a lot of what he brought to this film, in my opinion, is a great way of blending in the Easter eggs of the comics, the stylistic choices, and just making it pop on screen. I may not like it like the way everyone else does, but it will always be famous. It is one of the great comic book movies of all time for a myriad of reasons.
Goodbye, brother.
Then you have Wonder Woman 1984. Rather than one screenwriter, you have three. Jenkins, who continued to also direct the film, comic book writer Jeff Johns, and Dave Callahan, who has collaborated with many people. People who know what they're doing were involved in this movie, which I think is actually what makes it more painful how absolutely awful it is. And from the interviews I've read and what has been reported, Patty Jenkins absolutely wanted Wonder Woman 84 to be what it is. I feel like Patty Jenkins has a double-edged sword of being a woman who makes comic book movies and is therefore held to really ridiculous standards, and then also still don't like what she puts out. So it's that duality of getting way too much grief, also meh. In an interview, she explained that she worked to get a warm-hearted version of Diana.
Even all the way up to Wonder Woman, when I first joined Wonder Woman, it was kind of yeah, okay, but let's do it this other way. And I was like, that's not how women don't want to see that. And that's not her being harsh and tough and cutting people's heads off. That's not what I'm a Wonder Woman fan. That's not what we're looking for.
You already made one monster movie about a woman.
I told them what film I wanted to make.
In terms of Wonder Woman,
I said, this is not the story I think you should tell with Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be the one to get, in a fight for years about it. And so they said, no, we want to do it our way. So they tried to go do it their way. And then they came back to me a year later and said, actually, do you want to do it your way? And boom, I just went and made the movie.
I think that Wonder Woman is already a very difficult character to adapt as a superhero. Her origin story changes frequently, from really basic things such what is her parenthood, what are her powers set like. It's hard to adapt Wonder Woman because she has changed and evolved almost every decade to be what a writer needs her to be or an artist needs her to be. Everyone has just their favorite incarnations of Wonder Woman, but Wonder Woman herself is not one thing. And that can impact the way you view a film. Because, as I said before, I don't care for Jenkins' personal vision of Wonder Woman. I find her version of Diana quite boring. And I think, if I'm being totally honest, I think the only person that's been able to capture Gal's limited acting has been Zack Snyder, because I think that in the Justice League cut of his film, and I think in BVS, that is when Gal is the most compelling. Gal is a very limited actress who has been able to work forward based off of vibes and riz alone. And unfortunately, I do know what Riz means.
She is a true North superhero, and more than that, she's not just about defeating the bad guy or beating someone up. She's about teaching love and the betterment of ourselves. And so she's a very sincere, loving, caring, positive superhero. So I'm so happy how that's timing up with this moment.
She could not carry the film on her own, which meant that when we had this sequel, Wonder Woman 1984, which takes place in the 80s, we needed to bring Chris Pine back, which meant bringing him back for a plot that was rather rapey, and just sort of not understanding how Wonder Woman's canon can be incorporated. By setting it in the 80s, Jenkins was trying to show this idea of like 80s greed and excess, which, you know, I can see how like that's an interesting place to go with a character like Diana, who comes from a naturally, you know, almost socialist cabal lesbian paradise. And we're also working on her evolution from where she was in the first Wonder Woman movie to like where she is time linearly in BVS. The problem is that this entire journey is weird because they are completely different characters. The Wonder Woman we meet in BVS has no organic connection to anything we see in Wonder Woman. And at no point do I ever believe that these two characters are in sync with each other, because Zack Snyder's Wonder Woman will cut heads off. There's also the villain problem, because you have two villains in this film. Maxwell Lord, played by Pedro Pascal, mwah, love him, as kind of like this greedy Gorgon Gecko type. And then you have Kristen Wiig as Cheetah, doing her best Michelle Pfeiffer version of Selena Kyle. And the problem is that Cheetah is a top tier Wonder Woman villain. Cheetah is her greatest foil. They have a great conflict together. They are excellent. And I think that Cheetah should be in this movie by herself. The morality of truth in the story are kind of handled very poorly. And I will even make the argument that while having Diana handle solutions non-violently, for example, like in Grant Morrison's Wonder Woman Earth 1 series, where there's a lot of emphasis on that aspect of it, the stakes in this film just keep getting ramped higher and higher until like all of a sudden we have completely lost the plot and we are playing into every horrible Arabic Middle Eastern stereotype that is in existence at this time, that is not helped by the politics surrounding the star of the movie itself. So it's another instance where like Gal is not only just not a great actress, but also just like her own politics have made it very hard for people to separate that setting from her. And I say this with due reverence to Pedro Pascal. Maxwell Lord is barely interesting in existence. Like, as a comic book villain, he is not that interesting. His main interaction with Wonder Woman in the comics is her snapping his neck after he brainwashed Superman, and she realized the only way that it was going to stop is if, like, she killed him. And even that death is part of a larger storyline about morality and superheroes and having her have a conflict with Batman and Superman, all kinds of stuff, you know? Like, Maxwell Lord on his own is just not a good Wonder Woman villain. It's very boring. He's just very boring. He's not interesting. His story's not interesting. I get the Trump metaphor because, like, duh, but it's not good. And we already have Lex Luthor. You know what I'm saying? So let's do Cersei. Let's do Cheetah and Cersei. And I think that because 1984 came out during the pandemic and people could watch it at their homes, they were able to really pause and sit with it and be like, what the fuck is going on? And technically the film is still successful, but I feel like everyone has mocked it to shreds, you know.
I need you to give me the stone.
You know, it's giving Return the Slab or Suffer My Curse. And despite Jenkins having so much power over the story and making this movie, it still kind of feels like there's this like overarching issue with how they connect all their works together. But just these films always want to up the stakes and like do these big hyper like epic storylines, and like Wonder Woman as a character is allowed to just sit in the moment with herself, especially because she's supposed to be in isolation. So we're sitting here with the Wonder Woman's future that's uncertain because according to what I've seen in the DC live action world, they're not doing a third Wonder Woman film with Gal, which is bittersweet in my opinion, because despite everything, Gal did that. You know, Wonder Woman is better than Miss Marvel. Not to start the wars again, but like, let's be real. Birds of Prey is the best. But I say even that failure from Wonder Woman to Wonder Woman 84 isn't as heartbreaking to me as the big L between Shazam and Shazam! Fury of the Gods.
Shazam?
Shazam to me is one of the best things to come out of the DCEU. Like in the top 3, the found family vibes, the emotional journey of Billy Batson, and the good use of a large ensemble cast by giving everyone really great moments to interact. Plus it has OUS, like one unforgettable scene, which I think like it's a scene in a movie that when you put it on and you just show someone the clips, you can be like, and that's why you should watch it. And Shazam has that. Shazam made some good money and was well received, but it didn't make a shit ton of money. I think it came up against the first Ant-Man. And despite the fact that it was like kind of like a successful but mid terms of box office film, they kept the same budget and I think even added more to it. And they stuffed the movie with even more stuff. 2 new villains who feel overwritten and part of a world-building dynamic that doesn't actually fit organically in the DCEU. Like, there's so much stuff tying Shazam to Wonder Woman, and I'm like, okay, but like, you two have never interacted. This is weird. And again, the DCEU is about to end. It's very inconsistent and I don't care for it. There's also so much more Zachary Levi, who is another gal. Zachary Levi is continuing to just say out of pocket shit, and I'm just like, bruh. Shh. The emotional moments with Billy and his family are the heart of the film. And while Levi is fine as an actor, like, the character of Billy has grown and is like, that's the thing about Shazam that's hard. Like, Shazam is essentially like a man-child in a good way. And in the first film where Billy was younger, more of a teenager, it makes sense. But the whole conflict with Billy in this new film is that he's 18 and about to age out of the system and dealing with another sibling who is aged out. So he's older and Levi is still playing the character as if he's still 14. And it doesn't make sense because that's not how that character works. You know, and in Fury of the Gods, his big emotional storyline to Billy is that he hasn't called his foster mother mom yet and is afraid of the family drifting apart. And by the end of the film, none of that really matters, but it's been resolved anyway. Like, when he finally does call his mother character mom, the characters have spent so little time together that it just feels like this could have been great. This is the emotional heart of the story, but you are focusing on so much big shit that it really takes away from it. Then they throw in the comp head side romance with Rachel Zegler, who's getting so much hate online right now, which leave that child alone. Like, they have done nothing wrong. You guys don't like Snow White. You don't care about Snow White. If you did, you would have seen Mirror Mirror. You're liars and you lie. In both Wonder Woman 84 and Fury of the Gods, we see this increase of the scale of adventure. You know, like in Wonder Woman, there was World War I. What's important to the movie is the emotional purpose. We always know the hero is going to win anyway. What matters is how, why, what do they give up? How do they change? How do they evolve? How do they grow? How are we adjusting? How are we feeling about that growth? I will never forget in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, spoilers for that movie, when Ego says,
"It broke my heart to put that tumor in her head."
When he said that shit, I was watching the movie with my mom because we both love Guardian movies, and I gripped her hand. I was shook. Okay, I knew he was evil. His name is Ego. Okay, that's a big spoiler, but still, just knowing the emotional resonance of how Peter's mother's death wrecked him, and to have him finally found his father, and his father put the cancer in his mother, like, and finding that out in such a casual way, that shit fucking slapped. Okay, it was so fucking good. And I think both Wonder Woman and Shazam, the first two, had that. Billy in the first Shazam letting go of his biological mother and accepting the fact that he can choose the family that has chosen him and not hold on to just a very normative view of what family looks like is what allows him to give in and finally be a hero. Everything about his story that is important to who is Billy and what makes Billy a great hero is given credence in that storyline. And Wonder Woman falling in love for the first time and seeing the worthwhile in humanity, and also seeing Steve sacrifice himself for a greater good, is what makes her believe in like the love and power of humanity to give up their lives for bigger things. But then we get the same story again, just with little tweaks. You know, 84 rehashes the exact same emotional narrative with her letting go of Steve, except it goes from a small story about a war, which, you know, hard to say, but it's about a single god, to the entire world being undone and collapsing because of wishes. And the whole way that the wishes work barely makes sense because they only get one wish, then she didn't get two, then she wanted to be an apex predator, but she's not apex predators, so it's very confusing how she worded it, because then wouldn't you be like a crocodile? The logic of it goes out the window because they're trying to do so much stuff in one film and have the stakes be higher and higher, when really this is about Diana letting go of Steve and getting to start something new. And you know what she doesn't do in the entire movie? She never makes a serious bond with one other person besides Cheetah. And you know what happens as soon as Steve shows up? She don't even hang out with Cheetah anymore. So what was the reason? With these new sisters, we don't know anything about them. We don't know why they were in prison. We don't have an investment in their world. They all turn each other like within 45 minutes of the film. You know, Rachel Ziegler's character doesn't even seem to care that her sisters are dying and fighting. Like, nothing about their storyline makes sense, adds anything to the story of Shazam, or builds upon the messages of the first film at all. Maybe you could say like it's a family breakdown thing, but like it's Helen Mirren, Lucy Liu, and Rachel Ziegler. They don't have no chemistry together as siblings. Lucy Liu just came here to serve and leave, and she did that. Amazing, but there's no bond here. And besides the fact, Shazam 1 ended with a teaser for Mr. Mind, not 3 random goddesses. Nothing about it feels like it's built up within the same universe. It doesn't feel interesting to the audience, and we don't know why we should care about this, because none of this actually connects to Billy, his journey with his family, or what it means for his family to be going apart in different ways, because we don't focus on that. They don't have any time spent together. It's just wasted, and that sucks. But at least Shazam! Fury of the Gods came out. Not everyone gets that.
Permission to come aboard.
I love Aquaman. I think Aquaman is my favorite film in the DCEU. Then it's Birds of Prey, then I would say it's Shazam, when I was feeling very depressed and sad about stuff. I remember I had gone into Bumblebee feeling fine. I got a breakup text in between the two movies. This is back when I had AMC A-list and I was seeing many movies a day. And I was feeling so sad, so down, but I already bought my ticket. I was just like, let me just see the movie. And for those 2.5 hours, I was just vibing. And I just felt good. And like, I think if anything, and I'm someone who hyperthinks a lot, you know, and I know Aquaman is not a perfect movie. It is not like, oh my gosh, shooting on every single cylinder. But for the entire run of the film, I was into it. And like, that's what I want from an experience with these kind of IP. I want to be entertained. And boy, not just was I entertained, but the world was. Aquaman came out in 2018 and it grossed $1.15 billion worldwide. Aquaman is the highest grossing DCEU film, highest grossing film based on a DC character. And yet, the sequel to this movie, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, I've not seen a trailer. I have not seen a poster, and maybe by the time this video comes out, one will have happened. But it is coming out, allegedly, December 20th, and we know nothing about it. We don't know no script. We don't know no images. We don't even know how much time will have passed since the last thing we saw. There's an argument to be made that it could be part of the issues surrounding the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, or the fact that Jason Momoa has had other projects lined up, including Dune, which was going to also come out in December, but is now being pushed back due to the writer's strike. But that should tell you something. Jason Momoa went from being someone that people knew from Stargate and, you know, being Khal Drogo to becoming a huge star. Dune, Fast X, Slumberland, director's cut of Justice League. He's making cameos in The Flash and making cameos in Peacemaker. He was on that show C. He has been working, and he's been working and gaining momentum as a star, which should mean that you would quickly want to make that sequel, especially because so much of who he is as a celebrity is not just successful, but wrapped up in his environmental work. Like, he himself as a man of color, as someone who's invested in the ocean, especially with his work at Hawaii, his stuff with trying to maintain, you know, waters. Like, he is Aquaman. He is perfectly Aquaman. Make as many of these as possible as you can. And yet, because of the merger, because of Warner Bros. Discovery, and then deciding to just close up the DCEU, this project has been pushed back, the reshoots have been happening, and they just do not know what to do. While a timeline is not clear, from summer 2022 to the beginning of 2023, The Lost Kingdom underwent 2 rounds of reshoots and held several uninspiring test screenings. After 1 round of test screenings, new Wonder bosses Michael DeLuca and Pamela Abdi got involved, as they were running point on DC until Warner Bros. Discovery CEO David Zaslav could find a permanent DC boss to replace Walter Hamada, Justice for Ray Fisher. Sources say that in the fall, Abdy took a strong creative stance and got involved in the editing of one cut. However, when that version tested, it scored lower than the previous version. That led to another round of reshoots. Oh, and they wanted to put Batman in it. Michael Keaton's Batman.
Let's get nuts.
On our Patreon, we do a watching commentary, which is for the $5 and up folks. And we did The Flash this month. And when I tell you that all potential just wasted on bullshit, because let me tell you something about my father. My father, Michael Keaton, is still giving 10,000% right now. As at his big age, still serving in every single way. Wasted. Lost Kingdom is going to be the last film in the DCEU. That will mean something to a lot of people. People who love Zack Snyder. I'm an Aquaman defender. I ride or die for that film, especially because Mira, in my opinion, was one of the best, top 5 best female, like, supporting characters we've had in one of these superhero films. Like, she's amazing. Love her. Like, the Snyder fans are going to want to show up to this because Momoa was a Snyder kid. You have a Hawaiian man taking over a role that was mostly known as a white man, and honestly, probably the least controversial race bending they've ever done. They had Julie Andrews voicing a kaiju. That's what I want in an Aquaman movie. And we're also totally in a different place from 2018 in a lot of ways. And just giving it like a budget of like $250 million, like, is wild. And again, they didn't know that the DCEU was going to be canceled when they started making this film. But I just feel like at this point, I don't know if people want to see the dying embers of a universe that was always stagnant. Like, in my opinion, the fact that they canceled Batgirl but kept this film going is wild to me. Because, like, I don't see Momoa promoting it. Obviously, Amber Heard can't promote it. I don't see anyone promoting this film at all on any level. There seems to be no point to it. Batgirl would have no controversy attached to it, and you could have just ended this entire showcase with Blue Beetle. But you didn't. You just kept on going and going and going, and now, like, Aquaman's gonna be a huge bomb, most likely because Blue Beetle already is, and Blue Beetle is a really good movie. And I'm sad that it's getting screwed over because of the Shazam bullshit, then the Flash bullshit, and now Blue Beetle, an actual fun, good movie, is getting screwed over because of this whole enterprise. Actors cannot promote this film, and, like, audiences are just not going to show up for the dying embers of the comic book movie enterprise. And it sucks. It really, really sucks to see that as this universe is getting more diverse, it is also dying out. DC was totally set up to win in this era. 1,000%. They had the Batman movie, Peacemaker, the Suicide Squad. They had Shazam. They had the Harley Quinn show. They had so many things that really could make them stand out in ways that Marvel hadn't and couldn't do, because DC has made successful rated R films. They have made the crossover between TV and their stuff. They did it and it was working, but it's gonna be gone soon. And there were so many projects that were gonna be happening that we have no idea what will be going on with them. They had a Black Canary thing, they had a Walker show, they had a Green Lantern, and now they have a whole new era of shows with James Gunn, and no one knows anything. James Gunn, please stop tweeting. I'm rooting for you, but, like, stop it. It bums me out. It bums me out to see, like, all the potential and all of the good grace from actual good films and good works. Like, I feel like after the Snyder cut of Justice League, DC had the world in its oyster. They could have absolutely moved forward and done really fun work and figured shit out, and they have just failed spectacularly on every level. Even watching The Flash, it's astounding to me how they have at the heart of it a very emotional story between Barry and his mother, and, like, the final scene with Barry as an adult seeing his mom and, like, taking the tomatoes out of her shopping cart is such a good moment and such a good scene that it is astounding to me that they wrote that scene and no one was like, that's the movie. And Christina Hodgson has written excellent scripts, has written really fantastic movies. So I know this is some bullshit going on behind the scenes. Like, DC has struggled to protect its creators, support their writers from day one. This enterprise was always being screwed over, and it sucks because they have in their possession some of the greatest comic book characters of all time, some of the greatest comic book characters that will ever exist, ever. And they have wasted opportunities every single turn. And I know when this is all over and I finally see Aquaman, I'll be doing an entire retrospective look at all of these films and like doing a final ranking because it'll be over, which is wild. But yeah, it's hard. It's like watching your best friend like keep dating the same kind of person over and over again. That's how I feel right now. It's like seeing like my really good friends dating losers over and over again. At least My Adventures with Superman is really, really good.